Was in. Guys, you know what? Yeah, over the last couple of days, international football, England. I think it's safe to say, over the last couple of games, England have played Andorra and Senegal, and I think the majority of people would definitely have expected, at least, you know, well, a win and a draw. I think, the very least. And the game against Andorra, I didn't watch the game. Big up, reluctant gamer. I didn't watch the game against Andorra, but as a lot of us know already, Andorra, one of the minnows in of a nation in terms of football, and these are the kind of teams that if you've got anything about yourselves, and if we look at the likes of Spain, France, Germany, Portugal, Italy, Holland, maybe even some of the lesser teams, like from them teams like a Croatia, a Norway, whoever, Denmark. You're meant to be putting, 8, 9, 10 past these teams. Big up to Saeed as well. You're meant to be putting about 9, 10 past these teams. These teams are part-time. They're part-time players at this Andorra team. And to think that England only beat them 1-0 and a second half goal from Harry Kane, you know, I think alarm bells should be ringing there, because many people might look at it and think, well, they got the win against Andorra, and there isn't too much really to be worried about in a sense. But to be honest with you, for them to only beat Andorra 1-0, and again, you see the likes of what's his name, Thomas Tuchel come out, and again, Thomas Tuchel, obviously said his comments after the game. But to beat Andorra 1-0 is nothing short of embarrassing, let's be honest, because if one of the top nations are playing them, I can guarantee this now, it's probably about 5 or 6 before half time. And again, I didn't watch the game, but I knew England would win. But to think that they'd only win 1-0 is embarrassing. Big up to Barbara Joseph as well for coming on. And what I would say, watching that game last night against Senegal, I'll be honest with you, man. I actually didn't realize the amount of players Senegal actually have in terms of players that are playing, around the top leagues in the world. And if we look at, obviously in goal, former Chelsea goalkeeper Edouard Mendy, I think even for Harry Kane's goal, I think it was a poor save. The shot from, I believe it was Anthony Gordon. I think it might have been. And to be honest with you, the save was pretty poor. And then obviously Harry Kane doing what Harry Kane does, the little tapping and putting England 1-0 up. But if we look at Senegal's team, you got Kalidou Koulibaly and Edouard Mendy, obviously both former Chelsea players, both players now playing in Saudi. And then you've got the left back. Yeah, big up to Arshab. Yeah, big up Arshab. You got the left back, who for me was arguably one of the best players on the pitch. I thought he was very good. And I can't remember who he plays for, but I think after this game, you're definitely going to see. Sorry, guys, give me 1 minute. Oh, sorry, guys. Hay fever, man. If anyone's got any hay fever, make sure you put some tablets in today, man, because yeah, this hay fever today has been madness. I've been sneezing the whole day, man. But yeah, big up yourselves, man. Anyway, so the left back, I can't remember who he plays for, but you would definitely think after this game, there is gonna be yeah, big up gamer, man, big up. You would definitely think that there's gonna be some interest in him after that game yesterday. Because I thought, to be honest with you, he was very good. And let's be honest, man, he kept Bukayo Saka quiet for the whole game, and yeah, man, he put a great performance. Big up to Daniela, big up to Mark Benno. Yeah, big up guys for coming on. Guys, there's 8 of you in at the moment, only 4 likes. Again, smash that like button, and make sure you subscribe to my channel at GavGoesIn. Just one press of that button, smash that like button on the way in, and yeah, give me your questions, guys. Just talking about the England versus Senegal game. And if we look at right back, they've got a player called Sabali that normally plays right back for them. and I think he played against. Sorry, guys. This hay fever's getting the better of me today, man. Sabali was on the bench. Obviously, he played in the Conference League final for who was it? For Real Betis, and I can't remember who played right back, but I thought he would have started that Sabali. And then moving on to midfield, and big up to at Lit Talk Network. So he's the one. Sorry, bear me 1 minute, guys. So big up to Lit Talk Network. So because he's the one that told me to have a look at Lamine Camara of Monaco. And to be honest with you, I've watched a couple of clips of him. I watched him yesterday very closely. And I have to say that, he's someone that I think a lot of Premier League teams need to be looking at, very composed on the ball. He's very tenacious as well. And I think, obviously, the physicality of him, in terms of his getting up and down the pitch, he can do that. So I think he's someone that a lot of clubs really need to be keeping an eye on, because I think getting him out of Monaco, it won't cost too much money either. And I thought he had a decent game yesterday. I thought when he was on the ball, he kept the ball ticking over, didn't really lose it. And yeah, man, he was I think he had a very good game throughout. And they had him in there. They had the goal scorer, which was I can't remember his second name. It's Habib something, centre midfielder. And then who was the other guy in there? Oh, and Idrissa Gueye, obviously of Everton. So that midfield there, and to think, guys, as well, you got Papa Matar at Tottenham that didn't play. And I think there's a few other players that, that could have played there as well. And then you look at the front three, that front three, to be fair, is dangerous. I was surprised they played Iliman Ndiaye on the right-hand side, because he plays on the left-hand side for Everton. Ismail Assar and Nicholas Jackson. And obviously they got Boulaye Dia who come off the bench. So, guys, I will get back to your comments after, but big up yourselves. Keep your comments coming in. And to be honest with you, I look at that team, and this is a team that's got no Sadio Mane as well. I'm not sure if Mane has retired from international football. So there's no Sadio Mane, and I think there might be another player that I've forgotten that's normally there. And I looked at that lineup and I thought, do you know what? They're going to cause England all sorts of problems, because to think that England only beat Andorra 1-0, coming up against Senegal, you would think it's going to be a lot tougher game. And we're going to get on to England in a minute. But Senegal thoroughly deserved that win. They dominated the game throughout. And you know what it is? These are the kind of games that I want to see England play. Because I'm tired of seeing England play the likes of Andorra, Liechtenstein, Malta, all these countries that they're gonna beat, and it's a case of how much by. But when they play up against teams that have a lot of players that playing in Europe, and are physical as well, they're gonna cause England problems, And to be honest with you, the goal that Senegal scored, sorry. Oh man. Oh. Guys, hay fever, man. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's hay fever stuff, man. I've been sneezing the whole day. So yeah. So when I see England play up against these teams, it's good, because you want to see England get tested. And for too long, we become accustomed to England beating, these lesser nations. And when it comes to playing, the top nations in Europe or around the world, England invariably struggle, And for me, it was refreshing to see them play up against Senegal, an African team that we know is going to offer the physicality in terms of the strength, in terms of the pace, and the running. And as I said, yeah, they thoroughly deserved the win yesterday. I watched the whole game, and they dominated England throughout. I think England had a decent 5 minutes, obviously went 1-0 up. But then the first goal from Ismail Assar, And to be honest with you, Ismail Assar, man, he's been on the radar for a few clubs for years. And the fact that Crystal Palace took a punt on him when they sold Elise, you know, many teams probably wouldn't have seen that. But he's proven a handful in the Premier League, and internationally he's proven a handful, because I think he scored in the last international game as well. And you know, he got the first one. The second one came from the midfielder Habib. I can't remember his second name. You know, very good finish through the legs of Dean Henderson. And then the third one came from, obviously, against the run of play, to kill the game off, you know. And Senegal, the first ever, you know, African team to beat England, you know. And to be fair, they thoroughly deserved that game, and there was no issues there, man. I thought they played very well, you know. But if we look at England, you know, what I would say about England is that this is probably, you know, the first time in terms of collective, you know, they've had so much quality in their team, you know. And this could be a bad thing, it could be a good thing, you know. I think in this instance, it's a bad thing. And I'll tell you why. Because in this England team, you know, when whoever's the manager, you know, they're under pressure from the media, they're under pressure from fans to play certain players, you know. And I've always said this, you know, if we look at someone like, you know, Jude Bellingham, prime example, you know, because of his status in football, somehow, you know, he has basically commanded a spot in the lineup for England. So whatever manager comes in now, and whatever manager that doesn't have a backbone feels they have to play Jude Bellingham. Now, the problem with playing Jude Bellingham is that you're playing Jude Bellingham in a position where he doesn't play, and it's at the extent of better players in that position, you know. So you look at England's team, you know, you would look at, the majority of people would say, who are the guaranteed starters for England? They would say Pickford in goal. They would say Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, and Harry Kane, and possibly Bukayo Saka, you know. If I'm looking at all of those players, I think the only one you could possibly argue, the only two players you could possibly argue, in my opinion, that should be a starter for England in terms of experience and proving it, you know, for England, is probably Jordan Pickford and Harry Kane. Because I look at England's goalkeeping ranks, and you know, you got Dean Henderson isn't gonna trouble Pickford, because Dean Henderson with the ball at his feet isn't good enough. You got James Trafford, who I believe will take over from Pickford once Pickford's calls time on his international career. But there's no one really pushing him in that sense. Nick Pope isn't good with the ball at his feet. So yeah, I think Pickford probably is an automatic starter for England. And obviously Harry Kane's the captain, you know. If I look at Declan Rice, you know, I wouldn't say Declan Rice has to be an automatic starter, because I could devise a midfield that can be tenacious and be better on the ball than what Declan Rice offers. Because Declan Rice, to be honest with you, just passes sideways and backwards, you know. But he's in the team because, again, he gets around the pitch. Obviously, he's playing for Arsenal as well, which, you know, is going to enhance his international prospects. And the thing with Declan Rice is that whenever he comes up against, you know, a physical midfield or a team that can just play, you see Declan Rice's level. But again, these fans are just got Declan Rice, you know, on their lips, because they think he's this good, you know. And the funny thing is, I'm hearing shouts about putting Declan Rice in as one of the best midfielders in the world, which, again, these people don't watch football. So for me, Declan Rice is a good player, but nothing more. And for me, he shouldn't be an automatic starter for England, but he is under this fan base, under this regime. And then you look at Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham is not a 10, for one. You know, he's not a central. He's a box-to-box midfielder. But if I'm looking at what England need, you know, there's better options there than Jude Bellingham. And then you got Harry Kane, who speaks for himself. You know, Harry Kane. You know, I want to see Ivan Toney get more game time. And to be honest with you, the fact that Tuchel brought Ivan Toney on for the last 10 minutes is a disgrace. But I would say Harry Kane and probably Jordan Pickford are the only two players that can probably say to themselves they deserve a regular spot in the lineup when it comes to international tournaments, you know. And this is the problem with England, because I look at England's team now, and if we go on to the attacking midfielders, you know, you've got the likes of Cole Palmer, Morgan Rogers, you've got a Sancho who's not in the squad, Anthony Gordon who's there, Marcus Rashford who's there, Eze, Gibbs White, you got Foden, obviously, who wasn't in the squad. You know, obviously Saka as well. And I think there might be one more player that I'm missing. And even like a Jared Bowen as well. So you've got all those players that are vying for them attacking positions, you know. And the failure on this country and the management in playing Jude Bellingham, I know obviously he come on yesterday, but Jude Bellingham, when it comes to the international tournaments, is going to start for England in that 10, which is the problem, you know. And obviously, again, you got the likes of Kobe Minu who can play in the 10 as well. The fact that they're playing Jude Bellingham there, you know, it means that all the other attackers are now scrambling for a place. Big up the XR. All the other attackers are now scrambling for a place, because you're playing someone in the midfield in the number 10 position that shouldn't be playing there. And as I said, as long as that keeps happening, when it comes to them playing against the better teams, you know, not only is Jude Bellingham going to get exposed, but England as a national team will get exposed. And that's what happened yesterday. So, as I said, man, they've got players there that definitely in that 10 position should be ahead of Jude Bellingham. But every manager, obviously, had likes of Southgate. Now you've got Thomas Tuchel. They're just hell-bent on playing Bellingham as the 10. And then if you've got Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, that means there's one spot in that central midfield, you know. Oh man. Yeah, that means you've got one more space in that central midfield. And that means the likes of, because I do believe Cole Palmer is better from the right anyway. You know, I've been saying that for Chelsea and for England. But the problem is that when you've got Bellingham and Declan Rice occupying the two spots, and when they shouldn't be, you've got one more player to put in there. And the one player you're going to probably put in there is someone that's probably an athlete to get around the pitch, where it should really be a ball player, you know. But the problem is you've got two runners in Rice and Bellingham, and then everyone else has to figure out where they fit in this team, you know. If I'm England manager, you know, I'm playing Adam Wharton in there. Why? Because Adam Wharton's very good in the first phase, you know. He's very good under pressure as well with the ball. So Adam Wharton will be there. And then next to Adam Wharton, I'm looking at a Angel Gomez. I'm looking at a Kobe Minu. You know, I'm looking at another ball player that has tenacity, you know. But I look at Adam Wharton. Adam Wharton's got tenacity, you know, so, and he's a very good on the ball. And then, you know, you've got lots of Kobe Minu. You've got Angel Gomez who can play in there as well. You know, who else is there? There's probably other midfielders. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's other players that can play in there. And in the 10 position, you know, I'm looking at Eze. Even if you're going to play Cole Palmer there. Morgan Rogers for me. Between Morgan Rogers, Morgan Gibbs White. So for me, Rogers, Gibbs White and Eze, they should be the number 10s in this team ahead of Jude Bellingham. You know, and then on the right, you got Cole Palmer, you got Saka, Foden. Obviously, Foden can play in the 10 as well. You know, there's options there. On the left, Sancho, Gordon, Eze can play out there. Rashford. You know, there's loads of options that England can play. And obviously, the striking department, you got Kane, you got Tony, Watkins, Solanke. You know, so there's loads of options that England can do. But they're hell-bent on playing Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham. And as I said, guys, you know, this is an unpopular opinion. But if England think they're going to do anything with those two in midfield against the better teams, it's not going to happen. Because these two players, you would arguably say, are flat-track bullies. You know, when they play up against the better teams, their level gets found out. And this is the problem with England. And, you know, when Bellingham come on yesterday, you know, and what makes me sick about Bellingham, is that I say it's either clever from Bellingham or just people just are not clever themselves. What Bellingham does is that because these fans love Bellingham, not really because of his ability. Because if you're looking at Jude Bellingham's ability, you know, you wouldn't rate him because he's not a very good player. But what is with Jude Bellingham? He has physicality to his game in terms of running and being physical. Yeah. But why these fans love Jude Bellingham is because of how he comes across. Because he comes across as he's a passionate kind of player. You know, he's always throwing his hands up in the air to get the crowd involved. You know, everything he does is passion. And what he does is that he plays on the heartstrings of a lot of fans that don't really know what they're watching. You know, and the problem with Bellingham is that for someone like me, I've watched football for too long to know when a player is trying to pull the wool over a lot of fans' eyes. And unfortunately, because of the status that he's got in football, he's pulling the wool over a lot of fans because a lot of fans think he's this player. And the facts are, you know, for Real Madrid, he's lucky to be starting. You know, for England, he's lucky to be starting. They're the facts. You know what I mean? But because he thrives on passion, he's a passion merchant. These fans buy into it. Because if you look at yesterday when he scored the goal which got disallowed, and you know some people will say it's harsh, but again I've seen them disallowed, so I wasn't too surprised. But if you look at when he scored the goal, again he's all throwing his hands up to the crowd. You know, he's doing all this maneuvering, gesturing to them to get them back to get them up for the game. And the funny thing is, it's like you can see through all that, you know, but a lot of fans can't because Jude Bellingham has built up this facade that he's, you know, this player and that. And the fact that he's at Real Madrid, again, a player of that level shouldn't be playing for Real Madrid. Because I don't care what anyone says, you know, he's not a Real Madrid level player. He's not. But what he has is that he has physicality, and his physicality in that league will work at times because against the lesser teams because again that league's not physical. But if he was playing the way he was for Madrid in this league, he wouldn't stand out because this is a physical league. You know, just like if he was playing in France, he wouldn't stand out because it's a physical league. You know, but unfortunately, you got fans that just buy into him, and this is why he's taking up the spaces of other players because there's no way he should be starting for England in England's best team. That's a fact. You know, and as I said, man, they were thoroughly beaten yesterday by Senegal. Senegal played very well, and as I said, I want to see England play more teams like this and test themselves because, you know, as I say, for too long they've been playing up against the likes of Andorras, the Liechtensteins, them kind of countries, you know, and no disrespect to them, but they're not going to beat England because they're part-time players and they haven't got the quality to beat them. So England should be beating them, but it's when they play against other nations that have players that play in Europe, they come up and struggle, you know. So yeah, and as I said, Thomas Tuchel for me, you know, I don't really see what much difference he's doing. The fact that he can keep Ivan Toney on the bench for that long and bring him on for the last 10 minutes, you know, when you took off Harry Kane, some people might say, you know, or he might say he's trying to be clever, but the facts are that was ridiculous because Ivan Toney, you call him up to the squad, just give the guy some minutes. You know what I mean? If I'm Ivan Toney, realistically, he might as well just undeclare. He might as well just undeclare himself for England for the foreseeable because I keep saying as long as Harry Kane's there, no one's getting any proper game time. You know, because there are times that Harry Kane doesn't have to play, but the problem is Harry Kane just plays week in, week out for every game for England and very rarely gets rested, you know. Big up to Meda Dirk. Yeah, Meda Dirk, I can see you're a Senegalese fan. Big up to Senegal, man. Great performance yesterday, you know. They got some very good players, man. Again, that Lamine Camara, you know, big up to, as I say, Lit Talk Network told me about Lamine Camara. And to be honest with you, he needs to be snapped up because I think, you know, he's got a lot to offer, man. You know, very composed on the ball. You know, very good in the first phase. And again, some of the passing that that Senegal were doing yesterday, the way some of their patterns of play, man, was good. You know, and to beat England 3-1 away from home, you know, they deserved it, man. Definitely deserved it. But as I said, with England, yeah, Tuchel's got many problems, man, because I don't really know where he's going forward with this team, because there's certain players for me that have to play. He's got a heavy bias towards Chelsea. Again, Noni Madueke, I don't rate Madueke, but because Madueke is direct, he's getting game time in this squad. It is mad. It is mad. Guys, come on. Only 6 likes, 7 of you in at the moment. Smash that like button and subscribe to my channel, guys. Okay? Just one press of that button and like the channel, guys. Help the channel to grow. And big up yourselves. I will get back onto your questions in a bit. I look at Reece James. If Reece James stays fit, he's the first choice right back for me. And then I'd put in Tino Livramento, backing him up. I think Carl Walker, I think his days are numbered at England now. And to be fair, you can see his legs are gone. Yesterday he was pretty poor as well. So I think he's got 96 caps for England. I think, whether they're going to let him get his 100th cap, by putting him on the bench and bringing him on. But I think in terms of starting, I don't think he's going to be a regular starter for England moving forwards. I think Reece James, for me, has to be definitely the first choice. With Livramento, as I said, backing him up, and anyone else who's coming through. Lewis Skelly. I'm hearing shouts that Lewis Skelly is the best fullback in England, this and that. And I like Lewis Skelly. I think he's a very good player. Obviously he's a central midfielder, that can play left back. But I think expectations for Lewis Skelly do need to be put in order for me. I think, you got Lewis Hall, as someone else mentioned in the chat earlier. Lewis Hall's probably going to rival Lewis Skelly for the left-back slot in the future. You got lots of Tyreek Mitchell who don't get called up. Luke Shaw, for me, is done out here. So, yeah, I think Lewis Skelly, for me, I think, you could look at him for the second goal that Senegal scored. He might have been out of position. But then again, I think the communication from him and Gibbs White was the reason for that. Centre-backs, he played Colwill, he played Trevor Chalobah as well. And for me, that combination there isn't going to be the future combination for England moving forwards. I'm not really a massive fan of Colwill anyway. I think Chalobah is probably a squad member. But they need to improve on that. I think Ezri Konsa, for me, needs to be the main right centre-back for me now. I think John Stones, obviously, his injuries have taken its toll. So yeah, I think he should be the first choice right-sided centre back for me. Again, midfield, he played Declan Rice. We've spoken about him already. Conor Gallagher. I mean, the fact that Conor Gallagher, for me, and Jordan Henderson are in that squad, it tells you everything you need to know about England. England are not serious because let's be honest with you, these two guys are only in there because they run around and because people might say Henderson's leadership. But you're putting in two players in Henderson and Conor Gallagher at the expense of real football players to play these two. And Gallagher started, and again, Gallagher gets around the pitch. He's aggressive in the tackle, but they ain't going to win you anything. You know what I mean? If you've got Declan Rice in the squad that offers that, then at least have one of them. But to have Rice, Henderson, and Gallagher all in one squad, it just shows you that England are not serious. They're not serious because that combination there should never be in the England squad if they're looking to do anything serious. Eze played very well yesterday. I thought Eze was England's best player. And again, playing at 10, getting on the ball. And for me, this is why, as I said, Eze needs to be, one of the first choice in that 10 or on the left-hand side. But we all know when it really matters, he's not going to play Eze. He's going to revert back to type, which is the problem. Anthony Gordon, I think the first 10, 15 minutes, he looked a threat. But I think, did he come off as well? Yeah, I think he came off. But again, I think Gordon's a good player. But for me, I don't think he should be first choice for England in that position. For me, I think there's better technicians out there. And I ain't saying I think Gordon's a good player, but I don't think he's good enough to be starting for England on the left-hand side, in my opinion. And then obviously Harry Kane, the captain, starting the game as well. You know, so yeah, he's got things to think about, and I think it was more refreshing that they got beat by Senegal because it lets everyone know that this England team ain't what people think it is, you know. And it's about getting the right balance to this team because I know what team I would play, but the manager's not going to do it because he's hell bent on picking certain favourites of the fans, you know, of the. Sorry, guys. He's hell bent on picking certain players from of the fans, and obviously the media pressured these England managers into picking certain players. Yeah, big up Exedra, bro. Big up, man. Big up. So yeah, that's what I would say, man. But big up to Senegal, man. Great performance yesterday. Thoroughly deserved that win. And as I said, they've got a few players in there. The left back played very well. You know, I think if anyone's looking for a young left back, you know, that has potential, I know you can't base it on one game, but he looks like he's got something. And the way that he locked up Saka yesterday, you know, was good, man. Like Saka didn't have any change out of him. Let's be honest. I think Saka had one chance where Edouard Mendy made a good save, but other than that, he couldn't get into the game, and it was a lot of it was due to that left back. And then you look at again Lamine Camara, who I mentioned, you know, at Monaco, you know, played well. Ismail Assar's always a threat. I thought Iliman NDI, I thought he was quiet. You know, I thought he was very quiet, and I think that was because he started off on the right-hand side, which I was surprised about. But he's a good player. Nicholas Jackson, as we know, Nicholas Jackson is very hit and miss. You know, there's things that he does very well, and there's things that he could improve on. You know, Koulibaly at the back, their captain. Him and Nia Karte, you know, ex-Nottingham Forest centre-back, now at Lyon. You know, them two together were solid. So yeah, all around, man. And they had a few guys come off the bench, and one of them scored. You know, so all around, they had a very good performance, and England have a lot to do. But as I said, guys, as long as England keep playing, trying to shoehorn Jude Bellingham into this team, playing him in the 10, and certain players that they feel have to play every minute of every game, England are going to struggle because, you know, if you're other players in that squad, you're going to be looking at it thinking, well, it doesn't really matter how well I do because I'm not going to be given a chance, you know. And, you know, against Senegal, you know, it would have been good to see the likes of Harry Kane, Declan Rice. I know Bellingham was on the bench, you know, even Carl Walker. It would have been good to see those players not play not one single minute, you know. But these guys are always involved, and you know when it comes to the tournaments, they're gonna play, you know. So yeah, it is what it is. But guys, big up yourselves. I'm gonna get back onto your questions, but big up everyone for coming through. If you just come through, okay, there's 10 of you on at the moment. Make sure you smash that like button. Let's at least try and get to 10 likes. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure you do at GavGoesIn. So Saeed says, Idrissa Gana Gueye is so underrated even for Everton. To be honest with you, I don't think he's underrated. You know, if anyone remembers, Idrissa Gueye actually left Everton to go to Aston Villa. And then I think he went back to Everton. No, sorry, he went to, I think he was he at Everton first? I know he was at Aston Villa. I think he left Aston Villa to go Everton. Yeah, he left Aston Villa to go to Everton. Then from Everton, he went to PSG. You know, and then obviously from PSG, he went back to Everton. So I don't think he's underrated. I think with Idrissa Gueye, you know what he's going to offer. You know, I think at one time, I think he had the best stat for ball recoveries. You know, for Jules and that, I think it might have been. But for me, he played very well yesterday, and I don't think he's underrated. I think we're aware of the qualities that he has, and he had a good game yesterday, man. Definitely, yeah. So Saeed says, do you think Senegal can be underdogs in the next World Cup if they qualify? I mean, I think there'll be a lot of teams that will be underdogs, you know. Can Senegal win the World Cup? For me, no. But can they get to the latter stages? I think you have to. I think you'd have to give them a chance because, again, they've got a lot of players that are playing in Europe. You know, and if your players are playing in Europe, you know, you're going to be exposed to playing up against a lot of these other nations from the players that they have. I think they could be dark horses, to be fair. Not to win it, but to get quite far. And as I said, the way they beat England yesterday, you know, they beat them convincingly. And again, they're the first African team to beat England. And, they thoroughly deserve that win. So who knows? Do you think 150 million for Wirtz is expensive or fair? So for me, I had this conversation today with someone. For me, it's fair because if you look at it like this, you know, Bayer Leverkusen have lost their manager, Xabi Alonso, to Real Madrid. They lost their first choice right wing back, Jeremy Frimpong, to Liverpool. They lost their captain to their rivals, Bayern Munich, in Jonathan Tah. And they're selling their best player and, arguably one of the best players in the world. Definitely the best number 10 in the world, you would say. And if you look at Florian Wirtz, he's 22. Along with Musiala, they're the crown jewels in the German national team. And just based on that, it was always going to be a British transfer record to get Florian Wirtz out of Bayer Leverkusen. If you look at the transfer record at the moment, it is Moises Caicedo at 115 million. So anything, it was always going to be, anything that was going to better that record, and then obviously in potential add-ons as well. So I think it's fair because just based on everything that I've said, it was always going to be that kind of fee. I think 120 million probably up front, and then the rest in add-ons, you would say, or probably slightly more than 120 million up front. But as I said, man, you're buying. So the thing with Florian Wirtz now, he's going to be untransferable because if you're spending that amount of money on a player like that who's 22, you're expected to have him for at least the next 10 years, and providing he doesn't get any injuries, or major loss of form, which you won't see happen because he's too good a player for that. You're going to see Florian Wirtz be there for the entirety of his career, you would say. I think he's 22 now. I reckon he'll be there for the next, I'd say, 10 years. That'll take him up to 32. So it's a good investment for the long term, And as I said, he's untransferable now. So if any team was to come in for him, you're only looking at the likes of Saudi now, because no team in Europe is gonna be able to afford him because the starting price will be 150. That's just the minimum. And again, even if some team offers 200 million for him, Liverpool probably won't even accept that. So that's what I'm saying. He's untransferable now, and So again, it's a fair price for a player that's regarded as one of the best players in the world, and is the crown jewel along with Musiala for Germany. So Gamer says, who do you think is best for England apart from Kane? So if we're basing it on when everyone's fit, again, Reece James for me is the best right back for me in the game when he's fit. So he should definitely be a starter. I look at Adam Wharton in the future. Should definitely be a starter in that midfield for the qualities that he offers. Kobbie Mainoo, if he can rediscover his form at Man United and get a regular place, there's no reason why he can't be a regular player in the squad or in the team for England. The likes of Cole Palmer for me needs to be a regular, whether he's playing from the right or in the 10. Eze as well for me needs to be a regular starter. Jadon Sancho, needs to be added back to this squad. Once he gets regular game time at a club, I expect to see him back in the squad because in terms of wide players for England, there isn't many wide players of his quality, no matter what anyone says. So him, and then you got the likes of Morgan Rogers for me, who I'm a massive fan of. I think he deserves more game time, definitely. And then you've got the likes of Ivan Toney. For me, Harry Kane's always going to be the number one, but Ivan Toney should definitely be getting more game time. But England do have players that are, that do deserve more game time and are good players. But again, every manager that's come into England just doesn't play what's required. And for me, Thomas Tuchel's no different. So yeah. Yeah, big up DXR. Yeah, listen, the game was a very good game, to be fair. And, Senegal probably should have won by more. You know, I think Dean Henderson in goal. I think he made about 5 or 6 saves in the first half. You know, which showed just how dominant Senegal were. You know, England could have gone 2-0 up, but Senegal hung on. Even when the equaliser from Bellingham, which got disallowed, and rightfully so. Well, I say rightfully so. I mean, I have seen goals like that be disallowed. Senegal was still, you know, they were still the dominant team for me. But yeah, they thoroughly deserved that win, man. Definitely. Sai says Curtis Jones should be given game time. Yeah, I think Curtis Jones is a good player. The problem that Curtis Jones has is that Curtis Jones is never going to be a regular player for England because, as I said to you already, you know, every manager, Gareth Southgate, and now you look at Thomas Tuchel, they're hell bent on playing Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham in midfield. So that means there's one spot that all these players are fighting over. So Curtis Jones, really and truly, the only other spot he can get, because Curtis Jones ain't going to play in the 10 for England, so it's the other midfield spot. And because there's mad competition, you don't expect Curtis Jones to be, you know, a regular name on the team sheet. So he's going to have a tough time being in the lineup and probably in the squad as a whole. Gamer says Bellingham or Jordan Henderson in their prime. I mean, to be honest with you, it's not really two good names that you like to discuss. I don't really know. I couldn't really answer because they're two players that I don't really rate. I think Jordan Henderson's made the best of his career in terms of what he has to offer. I mean, at Liverpool, you know, he wasn't a great player, but in terms of what do they call it, the role he had to play for Liverpool, you know, he done a good job. But yeah, it's two players for me that, you know, I don't rate, and two players for me that, you know, it's hard to call really. That's what I would say. So Gamer says Walker's done for me. He looked worse yesterday. Yeah, listen, the thing with Carl Walker, as many people will know, is that a lot of Carl Walker's game is based on physicality. You know, his strength and his pace. Once one of them starts to go, most notably his pace, you're now going to have to rely on being an actual good defender. And the question marks that's been labelled at Carl Walker throughout the years is that positionally, he's often out of position. And I think for one of the goals, I can't remember what goal it was, I think that was the case yesterday, you know. And again, Reece James is there, and it's all about Reece James proving his fitness. And if Reece James proves his fitness, he should be the first choice right back. And Carl Walker, for me, you know, if you want to give him his England caps, his 100 England caps, he's got 4 left to do. You know, if he's on the bench and you want to bring him on, fair enough. But I think moving forwards, they can't be playing him as the regular right back because his time now for England's, you know, he's had his time and now it's done for me. So, and even for Man City now, you know, obviously he's back at the club, but obviously you expect him to be moved on, for sure. Yeah, I think he might still think he's still got, you know, some couple of years left in the game, Carl Walker. But whether it's at the top level now, I'm not too sure, you know, because as I said, his pace is winding down, and yeah, he isn't the same player. So DXR says, guys, imagine Wirtz flops. To be honest with you, Wirtz ain't gonna flop. Like, he's too good of a player to flop. And as I said, he's going to a team that, you know, is one of the dominant teams in the league. So if you're playing for a dominant team in the league, you know, you're always on the ball, you know, and the majority of the time you're expected to win the game. He's going to have a major part in that, you know. And again, Liverpool don't invest that amount of money if they don't believe in him. And as I said, from watching Florian Wirtz over the last, 2-3 years, there's no doubt in my mind that he's not going to flop, because for me, he's one of my favourite players watching now. And yeah, he's definitely going to have a good career for Liverpool, in my opinion. Gamer says, Gordon's not a goal scorer, but has decent energy. Try getting up the pitch, but he hasn't got them goals in him. Yeah, listen, Anthony Gordon, as I said, you know, he's a threat with his pace and with his enthusiasm for the game, you know. But I think in terms of quality, you know, and again, I'm not saying he hasn't got no quality whatsoever, but if we're talking about, you know, the elites in that position, he isn't one of them. You know, he's a winning runner, and obviously he's someone that will get goals. But for England, I look at what can be played out there in terms of quality. Eze, Sancho, um, you know, I'd have definitely those two as football players ahead of him out there. If you're looking for someone with a bit more pace and a bit more direct, you got him and Rashford. Um, Again, you got Bino Gittins, you know, who could come into the reckoning as well, but he's a bit similar to those players. So yeah, there is options, but yeah, I don't think he should be a regular starter for England, in my opinion. Sai says Saka is just hyped by Arsenal fans. Well, yeah, Saka's hyped by Arsenal fans. He's hyped just by a lot of England fans in general. You know, a lot of it for me is because of what happened when he got the racial abuse. You know, and again, I think Saka's a good player. I'm not going to stand here and I'm not going to sit here and say he's not a good player, but for the hype that he gets, for me, he isn't that. You know, and for Arsenal, he's a key player for Arsenal, no doubt. But in terms of him being a regular starter for England, you know, I'm not so sure because for me, there's players like Cole Palmer for me that is a better footballer, and I think would offer more to England. But again, Saka's loved by Arsenal and by England, so you'd expect him to be a regular name in the team sheet. But we're gonna wait and see what happens going forwards because yesterday, you know, he got no change out of that left back, and yeah, we have to wait and see what happens going forward. Zedra says I'm not really interested in Club World Cup. Kind of bored of football. You know what? Yeah, I kind of understand that. It's been non-stop, to be fair, football. I mean, the Club World Cup. To be honest with you, I think it's more for the teams that are going to get the money that's going to be that are going to be more get up for it because, you know, to get 50 million for participating and then 100 million for winning the tournament, and I think as every round goes on, you're getting money as well. That's the incentive because whoever wins this Club World Cup, you know, they're definitely going to be buying some players because, you know, to get 150 million if you win it and for entering, you know, you can go and get one world-class player there. You know, maybe two players that are just under world-class and improve your team. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Man United has made me switch to the NBA. Listen, Zedra, bro, I hear it, man. I hear it because I'm just more disappointed that some of the players haven't gone at the club yet. The likes of Garnacho and Hoyland, first and foremost, and obviously Bruno as well. But we know what's happened there. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. United, obviously, you know, Cunha's in. Obviously, Embuemo links, and Gyökeres. You know, I'm not getting excited. I'm just gonna just see how it unfolds. You know, I've got my own preference in who I want United to target first and foremost, but doesn't look like that's happening. So we have to just wait and see, man. But transfer window's shut, and I think it's shut for what 6 days, 7 days. So we'll have to wait and see what happens when it reopens. You know, 150 million for Verts is not great, but in the position Liverpool are in, it's fine. Still think City have a better squad though. Yeah, listen. If anyone's seen my stream from yesterday, the fact that City have signed Ryan Cherky, Tijani Reinders, and Ryan Ait Nouri to go with what they've got already, and they're getting them in for the Club World Cup as well. They're the favourites for me, regardless if they sign Florian Wirtz, because even Wirtz is coming through with Frimpong and Kirkes. You know, it will definitely add to Liverpool's team and make them stronger. But as I said, I can't look past Man City. You know, and I still think Man City are going to go in the market for another player as well. You know, I reckon they've got another big player in there. And imagine if they win the Club World Cup as well. You know, who knows, man? Um, so Saeed says Chelsea is top four next season for sure. So yeah, my top four for me, and in no order, is City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Newcastle. I think those four teams for me will be the top four. You know, I think Arsenal will miss out for me. You know, because I think, you know, I think a lot of the teams that weren't great last season, I think will be better as well. So yeah, I think those teams will definitely, those four teams for me. And I think Newcastle do need to spend some money for them to be, for them to push on to the top four as well. But yeah, I'll definitely say that those four for me are the favourites, you know, and United having one game a week as well. Yeah, who knows, man? It could be, you know, it could happen, but we have to wait and see what United do in this window still anyway. So Said says, yeah, but I think they are finishing above Arsenal if Arsenal doesn't get another striker or winger like Leao. But the thing is, Arsenal are not going to sign Leao because AC Milan have already come out and said that if anyone, until anyone meets the 109 million fee that they want, they're not going to sell him. And you got to think as well, you know, they've lost Reinders. You know, Teo Hernandez was rumoured to be going to Al Hilal. That's broken down, but whether he'll be on the move to someone else. I heard he's in talks with Atletico Madrid. Mike Maignan obviously wants to leave. Obviously, the Chelsea move broke down. And then you've got, obviously, Leao. So they're going to want to try and keep hold of Leao. And if anyone doesn't meet the 109 fee that they want, they're not going to sell him, you know. And they've made that clear, really. Arsenal not making top four. Their business is so arse, man. Yeah, listen. Sesko looking like he's coming in. And as I said, you know, for me, that's not going to be enough. So yeah, that's Arsenal's problem, innit? Because I think they need to do a lot more than Benjamin Sesko for me. But yeah, as I said, man, Sesko is their prime target. You know, and again, I don't see Arsenal buying two strikers. You know, I think they're gonna buy the one, and it's looking like it's Sesko. So I don't expect Arsenal to do anything serious because Arsenal needed to meet for me to bring in two world-class players, you know, or two players that will take them to the next level. And that was a striker and a left winger. You know, there's been links to Rodrigo, who for me they're not getting Rodrigo. Nico Williams, you know, Leroy Sané, who's now gone Galatasaray. So yeah, as I said, man, I don't believe Arsenal do anything serious this season. I think it's going to be another top four finish for them, or trying to get into the top four. Arsenal are linked to Rodrigo and we'll get Sane or Garnacho. Listen, if they want Garnacho, listen, come and take him off our hands. Come and take him. If Arsenal want to give us money for Garnacho, I can't lie, man. I'm gonna be a happy guy because to get Garnacho off the wage books as well, get a fee for him, and he's gone to Arsenal. Yeah, that'd be good business for United, man, and hopefully that happens. But you're not getting Rodrigo. It's not gonna happen because Rodrigo is gonna cost at least between 80 and 100 mil, and Arsenal are not gonna spend that money, so that's not gonna happen. Saeed says if Man United gets Mbeumo and Gyökeres, then they are finishing top 8. Well, one game a week, you know, you'd probably hope for a bit more than that. If United was to get both of them players, I'd expect them to battle for top 4 with one game a week. No excuses, you know. But again, I'm not really a massive fan of Gyökeres, you know. I don't really think United desperately need a Gyökeres, in my opinion. I think what it is, a lot of people think because Gyökeres gets goals, you know, it's essential. But what Man United need, and if you're getting goal-scoring wide players, the likes of Cunha, the likes of Mbeumo, you need to get a number 9 that comes in, which is why they've got Joshua Zirkzee there already. Joshua Zirkzee is a facilitator. So Zirkzee can be the link man to help get the goals out from wide. Do you know what I mean? So the thing is, Xerxes there. So the Gyökeres money that if they do spend money on him, I would much prefer them to go and get a midfielder, 2 midfielders that will improve the team, because having a goal scoring wide players, it just means that you need to get a facilitator, a link man striker like a Xerxes who's already there, where the goals will be coming from out wide, and Xerxes will get his fair share. You know, so these are kind of things that United need to be looking at, because for me, I hear all the Gyökeres goals and stuff like that, but again, he has been doing it in Portugal, you know, and a lot of his goals, again, I think half of them were penalties as well. But for me, you've got Xerxes there already, and he just needs to be made the striker and restored back to being a striker. And if you've got Xerxes and you've got Mbeumo, you've got Cunha, who are goal scoring wide players. Hopefully Sancho, you know, gets back into this squad, hopefully, and doesn't go on loan. And then you've got Ahmad as well, who can play out there. You've got very good options there, man. Kobe Mino as well can play in one attacking positions as well. You know, you've got very good options there. So yeah, that's what I think needs to happen. So yeah, I think the Gyökeres money, they should just go and get a couple of midfielders, in my opinion. You know. Oh man, guys, this stream has been a struggle. I ain't gonna lie, man. It's been a struggle with this hay fever, but we've got through an hour, man. So big up yourselves for staying tuned as well, man. Izedra says Gyökeres and Mbeumo Cunha should be top 4. Yeah, exactly. It should be 100%. It should be, no excuses. And I think for this manager, if he doesn't start off well, yeah, he could be gone before Christmas, because I'm looking at the next 5, the first 5 league games. You know, I expect United to have at least 3 wins, at least 3 wins from the first 5 games. You know, regardless of what opposition they're playing. And if he gets less than that, he's gonna be under pressure for me. So yeah. So DXR says Arsenal not gonna bag Rodrigo unless they drop 130 mil plus, and the wages got to be Saudi level. Yeah, listen. Well, first and foremost, Rodrigo has to come out and say he wants to leave, and then you've got to negotiate with Madrid for the fee. He's going to be a very hard deal to do, you know, and what they're going to ask for is a lot of money. So, and Arsenal not going to drop that money on him, you know. And again, why would he go Arsenal? You know, the 2 ideal clubs for me that Rodrigo needs to go to in England, you know, is Man City and Chelsea. Chelsea and Man City for me both need left wingers, because I look at Chelsea, you know, they've got really no one there, because Sancho's gone back to United. Mudryk hasn't played in ages, and obviously you think he'd be moved on. Plus he's got number 10 taken away from his back as well, from where Cole Palmer now has it. And then you've got players in Madueke and Neto who have been playing out there. So which is why they're chasing Bino Gittins. So Rodrigo's. I mean, Chelsea are crying out for Rodrigo in that position, and then you've got Man City who are going to look to move on Jack Grealish. You know, Doku's there. Marmoush can play out there as well, but you would think that Rodrigo would be an ideal signing for them and a starter. You know, so yeah. But we have to see what happens there. Sai says Onana needs to step up. Yeah, he does. I mean, this might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I know a lot of fans, you know, don't rate Onana, and I do think Onana does need to get better. But Onana for me isn't a major problem that I would say needs to be addressed. I mean, if you're looking at getting rid of 5 players, you might have him in there. But for me, the likes of Garnacho and Højlund, for me, are certainties, along with Bruno. Like, Bruno's obviously still here because the Saudi thing broke down. But Garnacho and Højlund, if Man United can get rid of those 2 players, and the reason I say those 2 players is because they're outfield players that have been playing regular for over the last couple of seasons. And if you get rid of those two and get money for those two and get better quality in, that's why it's crucial more than Onana. Because Onana, obviously, you know, the goalkeeping department, I understand, you know, it does create uncertainty if you have a goalkeeper that isn't giving you confidence, obviously, you know. Sorry, I'm just looking at so Sham, yeah, you was right. So 46.3 million for Reinders. So that must be including add-ons. I think it must be including add-ons. So it must be 33 million up front and then the rest in add-ons. So yeah, you was spot on, man, with that one. Big up. DXR says, why the fuck Rodrigo gonna leave a potential start of a golden generation at Real Madrid? Yeah, I mean, but I mentioned this yesterday, I think, as well. You know, someone from that Real Madrid lineup is going to miss out if Xabi Alonso plays a three at the back. You know, because if you're playing three at the back, Arda Güler, Rodrigo, and a Bellingham, I would say, are missing out because you can't play Bellingham as one of the two in midfield. And really and truly, you shouldn't be playing him on the right side of a three. So, you know, there's no place for him really in this team if they play a three at the back. Again, I'm going off of what he's done at Bayer Leverkusen. Arda Güler in the three at the back is ideal for what Xabi Alonso has been doing because he's left-footed and can play as part of the front three. You know, Rodrigo in a three at the back can fit in this system, but that just means that, you know, he obviously you play one of the three where it's either left or right, but it won't be left because Vinicius Jr.'s there. And yeah, so it depends what's going to happen, but I think the likes of Arda Güler needs game time, and the fact that Franco Mastantuono now is at the club, what does that mean for Güler? Because I'm seeing people on Twitter yesterday doing lineups for Real Madrid. So they had a 4-2-3-1 of Courtois in goal, Trent right back, Alvaro Fernandez left back, Dean Howson alongside either Rudiger or Eder Militao, Tchouaméni and Valverde in the midfield, Bellingham in the 10, Vinicius Jr. on the left, Franco Mastantuono on the right, obviously left-footed inverted, and then Mbappe up top. So I'm seeing people do teams like this. For me, how I'll play Real Madrid, and they've got loads of options. I'd play Courtois in goal. I'd play Valverde right back. I'd play Ferland Mendy left back. And then Rudiger and Dean Howson as the centre-backs. Then I'd play Tchouaméni and Camavinga. You know, obviously left-footed Camavinga for the balance as the two pivot players. Then the three, I would play Rodrigo in the 10. Vinicius Jr. on the left. Arda Güler from the right, left-footed inverted. And then Mbappe up top. And then you still got the likes of Mastantuono, you know, Trent, Bellingham, Alvaro Fernandez, Carvajal, you know, Militao, Brahim Diaz. You know, you still got players that can be part of the squad and come on. So they've got a lot of options, but I just don't know how they're going to set up. But one thing I will tell you, someone's going to miss out, and that could be them moving on, in my opinion. But we'll have to wait and see what he does. So Saeed says, ask DXR, they are paying Havertz like 250. You're wrong, Saeed. They're paying Havertz more than that. I think they're paying Havertz close to 300. So I think he's getting paid 280. It's because Gabriel Jesus is on 265. So yeah, Kai Havertz is on 280. Jesus is on 265 at Arsenal. So this is why they're bringing in Sesko, because you can't bring in a top-class striker because they're going to ask for more money than Havertz. So this is why they're going for Sesko, you know. If Arsenal wants top four, they will need Leao and Sesko. Leao, possibly. Sesko, I don't think. I think, again, Arsenal have been going for top four for the last few seasons. The where Arsenal find themselves now is that they can't be finishing second, and then going backwards. Their next stop is a league title, and this is why they need to be signing players that are going to take them to a league title. And Benjamin Sesko ain't that. So this is why I'm saying to you, if they sign Sesko, and that's all they do, obviously they've been linked to Zubimendi, but whether he wants to go Real Madrid, so whether that happens or not. But they're gonna be in a top four battle again for me. So I don't see that happening. Yeah, I don't really rate Sesko, I'll be honest, man. I don't rate him. He's like Giroud, the XR says. No, I think you're giving a disservice to Olivier Giroud. Olivier Giroud was a very good player. You know what I mean? Technical, good in the air, very good at linking the play. He was underrated, scores goals, didn't have any pace, but everything else to his game is a reason why France won that World Cup. As I said, he was instrumental, even though he didn't score, but he was instrumental in France winning the World Cup. Sesko is like Nunez. Well, if he's like Nunez, man, I think Arsenal need to save their money, because I don't rate Nunez not one bit. So DXR says, Gav, I'm excited for Club World Cup. To be honest, this season has been pretty satisfying. Yeah, I mean, the Club World Cup for me is only going to be exciting for the teams and the fans that are in it. Because I think in terms of seeing some of the games, they're not going to be playing each other anytime soon, I don't think, unless they get to the latter stages. But it's the money that's on offer, and I think it's a case where, I think it's a case where those teams will be looking at that to try and add money to their budget, definitely, Saeed says, I think Xerxes or Havertz suit Liverpool. Joshua Xerxes suits Liverpool perfectly because, again, and I said it earlier today, if you've got goal scoring wide players, you don't need a goal scorer as your striker or someone that's gonna be goal hungry. You need someone that's gonna facilitate the goals from out wide. So if you've got a striker like a Xerxes, who can link the play and is an unselfish striker in terms of, is high on the assists, can link the play, etc. This is where your goal scoring wide players will thrive, and that's why he'd be perfect for Liverpool, because Liverpool got Mo Salah out wide. Even though Mo Salah has lost his pace, he's got the experience and obviously is a goal scorer as well. And on the other side, you've got a Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, who are wingers, and will get goals. Your striker then needs to be someone that can link the play. Or if you're going to get a hybrid that can do both, then you're laughing, So Arsenal need another Alexis Sanchez. Yeah, well, you're not really going to get another Alexis Sanchez, They just need someone that's an upgrade on Martinelli and Trossard, which ain't hard, and someone that's an upgrade on Jesus and Havertz. And then you can take them more seriously for me. So Zedra says, only one loss allowed in the first 5 league games for me, Gav. Yeah, listen, if I'm being honest with you, like the first 5 games of the season for me, for Ruben Amorim, he needs to go through them 5 games, with at least 3 wins. And if he gets, 2 draws, then fair enough. But anything other than 3 wins for me, I mean, imagine if he got his first 5 games, he got 5 draws or 4 draws. That's nowhere near good enough for 1 game a week. So I think the minimum for him in the first 5 games is 3 wins. And I think that is doable. So that's what I expect him. That's what I expect, with the signings they might do. Big up to Anna Hormigo. Yeah, big up. Guys, if it's your first time in there, come on, smash that like button. Only 8 likes. At least try and get 10 likes. And make sure you subscribe to my channel at GavGoesIn as well. Big up yourselves. Last question before we wrap, guys. I will be back at 6 o'clock today with Jonas. So obviously new guest on the show. So we was doing a stream the other day, but Obviously, some of you guys were saying that, you know, it was freezing, so we managed to schedule another one in for today at 6 o'clock. So yeah, make sure you guys come back through at 6 o'clock, guys, today. So yeah, guys, we're gonna wrap it up anyway from here. So as I said, big up each and every one of you for coming on and contributing, obviously, to the channel. You know, some great questions in there. And as I said, we've got 8 likes on there. Let's try and smash 10 likes on your way out. You know, all it is, guys, just one press of that button if you haven't smashed the like button yet. And again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my channel as well. So yeah, guys, we're back at 6 o'clock today with obviously a new guest, Jonas. Hopefully you guys can come through, give some more support. And as I said, keep giving us your great questions. So yeah, we're going to be covering, obviously, the transfer window, you know, and who are the most likely teams that are going to be successful in this season's Premier League and Champions League. So, yeah, guys, make sure you join us. As I said, give us your questions. Give us your comments as well. Tell us what you think. And, yeah, guys, keep subscribing if you're new in here as well. And smash that like button and keep tuning into the channel, guys. Big up yourselves each and every time. And I'm going to catch you guys back at 6. Take it easy.